December 2nd, 1993. A man who once made $20 billion vanish in cash is barefoot on a rooftop, running. Shots crack, a bodyguard falls, the king of cocaine stumbles, turns, and in one terrifying second, history pivots. Did they kill Pablo Escobar, or did he pull the trigger himself? Welcome back to History's Blind Spot. Like the video, subscribe for weekly deep dives, and tell us in the comments where you stand. Time to separate legend from truth. Pablo Emilio Escobar Gaviria was born on December 1st, 1949, in Rio Negro, located in the Antioquia department of Colombia. He was the third child in a large family of 7 born to parents who struggled to make ends meet. His father, Abel de Jesus Dari Escobar Echeverri, was a poor farmer who often worked as a farmhand on other people's land. His mother, Hamilda de los Dolores Gaviria Berrio, balanced raising their 7 children while working as a local elementary school teacher. Early in Pablo's childhood, the family moved to Medellín, a city with a rich and complex history. Initially settled by the Spanish in the 1610s as a mixed-race village, Medellín steadily grew over 2 centuries. By the time of Colombia's independence from Spain in 1819, it was already a significant regional capital in the northwest, nestled in the Ibarra Valley near the Andes Mountains. The city's growth was remarkable. From around 60,000 people in 1905, Medellín's population expanded to over 300,000 by Pablo's birth, driven by industrial development. This trend continued, and by Pablo's early 20s, the population had surpassed 1 million, establishing Medellín as the country's industrial capital. Against this backdrop of urban expansion and economic transformation, Pablo began to drift into criminal activities. By 14, he was involved with a gang and expelled from school. His early criminal encounters were marked by violence. In one incident, he fought Julio Tulio Garces, losing the fight. Subsequently, during an altercation with Julio Gavia, Pablo escalated matters by shooting him in the foot, which led to his first experience in the Colombian prison. These early experiences, combined with the urban poverty prevalent in Medellín, set the stage for Pablo's future criminal enterprises. He and his friends became involved in various petty criminal activities, marking the beginning of his notorious path. The political landscape of Colombia in the 20th century deeply influenced Pablo Escobar's trajectory. The country's history was marked by intense factional conflict between liberals and conservatives, with consistent US intervention shaping its development. In 1948, just before Escobar's birth, a pivotal moment occurred with the assassination of populist politician Jorge Eliezer, which triggered a devastating decade of civil war known as La Violencia. Over 200,000 people were killed during this period, before the 2 political groups established an uneasy power-sharing arrangement. American interests played a crucial role in Colombia's political landscape. Initially focused on access to Panama, US interventionism later centered on controlling trade in coffee, bananas, and other regional products. Conservative politicians frequently aligned with American business interests, contributing to a stagnant economy and widespread poverty. The new government, backed by the United States, subsequently targeted left-leaning political groups, particularly communist organizations, to prevent Colombia from becoming a potential Russian ally like Cuba. Escobar's early life remained shrouded in uncertain narratives. Some accounts suggest he engaged in petty crimes, such as stealing and reselling gravestones or selling fake academic diplomas. The line between truth and fiction in these stories remains blurry. In Colombia, politics and narcotics were inextricably linked. Understanding Escobar's subsequent criminal career requires examining the complex socio-political context of his homeland during this tumultuous period. Colombia entered a turbulent period marked by a guerrilla war between the Revolutionary Armed Forces of Colombia, FARC, and the government. This conflict, involving various paramilitary groups, quickly spread across rural areas, with these organizations effectively taking control of large territories. The emergence of this conflict coincided with a dramatic surge in worldwide demand for illegal narcotics, particularly in the United States and Europe. Initially, marijuana was the primary drug of interest, but cocaine soon became the most lucrative commodity. Colombia's unique environmental conditions, Sprawling rural jungles and increasing lawlessness transformed the country into the global epicenter of cocaine production. While groups like FARC were not initially direct producers of cocaine, they played a crucial role in the drug trade. They allowed cocaine production in their controlled territories and imposed taxes on producers. This income became essential for funding their ongoing conflict with the government, enabling them to purchase arms and supplies. Eventually, these groups would begin producing cocaine themselves. The cocaine trade cannot be understood separately from Colombia's complex political landscape during the latter half of the 20th century. It was in this environment that Pablo Escobar began his criminal journey in the late 1960s. By his late teens, Escobar was already deeply involved in organized crime in Medellín, working with Oscar Benaguer. He engaged in various illegal activities, including selling contraband cigarettes, committing grand theft auto, and conducting high-profile kidnappings that generated substantial ransom payments. Escobar was driven by an intense ambition to become wealthy. His willingness to take significant risks and engage in increasingly serious criminal enterprises would soon set him on a path to becoming one of the most notorious drug lords in history. Pablo Escobar was already involved in various criminal activities to acquire money, with marijuana smuggling being his initial venture. Transitioning to cocaine was a natural progression, and many began to see him as a marked man. Around this time, Pablo met and began courting Maria Victoria Henao, a teenager. Her mother reportedly warned her that pursuing a relationship with him would mean spending much of her life visiting him in prison. Undeterred, Maria married Pablo in 1976 when he was 26 and she was just 15. They would go on to have 2 children, Juan and Manuela. Shortly before his marriage, Pablo entered the growing cocaine trade through another smuggler named Griselda Blanco. Cocaine had been a niche drug in the United States during the 1960s, with marijuana, LSD, and heroin being more prevalent. However, the 1970s saw cocaine use explode across the country, particularly in the expanding disco scenes of cities like New York and Miami. This rapid expansion created an unprecedented market for cocaine in Latin America, especially Colombia. The environment was ripe for drug cartels and small operators like Pablo to establish themselves. His first engagement was with established smugglers in Medellín, who hired him to deliver coca paste to processing facilities. Soon, Pablo began cutting out intermediaries and developing his own operations to transport fully processed cocaine from Colombia to the United States. Unbeknownst to many at the time, Pablo and his associates were laying the groundwork for what would become the Medellín Cartel. However, the cartel's early days were nearly derailed in May 1976, when Pablo and several others while traveling to Medellín with 18 kilograms of coca paste. Pablo's initial response was to attempt bribing the arresting officers and judges in Medellín. When this failed, he escalated to trying to have the arresting officers murdered to prevent their testimony. These actions highlighted the increasing risks associated with pursuing Escobar. Escobar and the Medellín Cartel's business rapidly expanded in the late 1970s. This growth stemmed not just from the booming cocaine market in the United States, but from the cartel's innovative drug importation strategies. 2 key players in this expansion were Carlos Leder, a German Colombian, and George Young, an American from Massachusetts. Both had recently been released from Connecticut's Danbury prison in 1976. Leder had been imprisoned for smuggling marijuana and stealing cars, while Young had been running a marijuana distribution network from Mexico to New England. At Danbury, they developed a plan to enter the growing cocaine trade. Upon release, they began smuggling cocaine from Colombia through the Caribbean and into America, primarily through Florida and Miami. Initially, Escobar hired them to facilitate larger cocaine shipments to the United States. In 1978, Leder took a significant step by purchasing property on Norman's Cay, a Bahamian island. His intention was to transform it into a cocaine transit point between Colombia and America. He aggressively acquired land, often through intimidation and violence, including murdering local residents. Leder, known for his volatile personality, also pushed Young out of the operation. Throughout his career, Escobar was willing to use violence to gain advantages over competitors and evade authorities. Though he tried to portray himself as a humble trader who believed drugs would eventually be legalized, the reality was far darker. Behind his self-serving narrative was a man responsible for thousands of deaths, Ultimately, the authorities dropped charges against him, an outcome that reflected Escobar's approach for the next 15 years. His ability to make legal challenges disappear was a testament to his power and ruthlessness. Norman's Cay became the Medellín Cartel's personal Caribbean airport, strategically located off the coast of the United States, near the world's largest cocaine market. Norman invested millions to build a runway and warehouses. Large aircraft would bring in massive cocaine shipments, which were then offloaded and transferred to smaller planes capable of flying undetected into the United States. At the operation's peak, over 300 kilograms of cocaine arrived daily at Norman's Cay. This volume of trade made Escobar later and their associates billionaires. Leder's wealth grew so immense that he twice offered to pay off Colombia's national debt to avoid prosecution. Barry Seal, an airline pilot from Louisiana, was a key associate during this period. Like other traffickers, Seal started by bringing marijuana from Mexico in the mid-1970s, but quickly recognized cocaine's higher profitability. By 1981, he had established a sophisticated operation with Escobar and the Medellín Cartel. Seal utilized over a dozen small aircraft that could fly low and evade radar detection. These planes would cross the Gulf of Mexico into Louisiana, dropping packages at predetermined rural sites. The ground team would then collect the packages, which would be shipped to Florida and integrated into the cartel's East Coast distribution network. However, Seal's involvement took a dramatic turn. The DEA indicted him in 1983, and by early 1984, he was working as a government informant, providing extensive details about Escobar's operations. Escobar eventually discovered this betrayal and had Seal killed in February 1986. Meanwhile, Escobar was building his own empire in Colombia, using proceeds from his trafficking operations. He purchased approximately 20 square kilometers of land near Puerto Trufo, about 150 kilometers east of Medellín. Pablo Escobar developed the Hacienda Napoles, a vast complex that was far more than just a home. Spread across the estate were extraordinary features like a Spanish colonial house, a sculpture park, and a diverse zoo filled with exotic animals from around the world. Zebras, hippos, antelopes, elephants, giraffes, ostriches, and ponies all found their home here, with Escobar showing a particular fondness for hippos. His love for these animals would have a lasting impact, as a population of wild and feral hippos still inhabits this part of Colombia today. The state was a testament to Escobar's extravagant lifestyle. Beyond the zoo, he installed a car racing track and a bull ring. His collection of vintage and luxury cars and motorcycles was impressive, and the property even featured an airport for visitors. Escobar had grand ambitions, including plans to construct an ancient Greek-style citadel, though this vision ultimately went unrealized. His property acquisitions extended far beyond the Hacienda Napoles. In the late 1970s, when he was not yet widely known as a notorious drug lord, Escobar managed to purchase a massive pink mansion on Miami Beach, which was later seized by the US government. Another significant property was a grand estate on Isla Grande, the largest island in the Islas del Rosario archipelago, located just over 20 miles of Colombia's north coast. This Caribbean property mirrored the hacienda in its luxury, featuring a mansion, additional apartments, imported animals, swimming pools, and a helicopter landing pad. These were just the most extravagant of Escobar's properties. The Medellín Cartel owned hundreds of properties throughout Colombia, often used ingeniously to hide money. Throughout the late 1970s and early 1980s, Escobar benefited from his relative anonymity before becoming known as the King of Cocaine, or El Patron. During this period, the Medellín Cartel continued to grow exponentially, with Escobar's operations expanding. Unchecked, known, Escobar's drug operation rapidly expanded beyond Colombia, creating an industry throughout South America by the early 1980s. The cartel established coca paste plantations in neighboring countries like Peru and Bolivia, while simultaneously smuggling massive quantities of cocaine into the United States and Europe. Using increasingly sophisticated methods such as small submarines loaded with drugs, they were moving several tons of cocaine weekly. The financial scale was staggering, generating up to $60 million daily, and approximately $20 billion, many of them Mino and Severa. As money became too abundant to manage, the cartel developed complex laundering strategies. They often used Panama to convert funds, buying gold and melting it down to create seemingly legitimate financial streams. With profits spiraling, hiding money became a creative endeavor. They concealed massive cash reserves in unexpected locations, including a mansion with a specially designed jacuzzi, hiding a secret compartment containing tens of millions of dollars. In one ingenious scheme, they allowed a poor Colombian family to live in the house, quietly moving money in and out without their knowledge. The legacy of these hidden funds continues today. In 2020, Nicolas Escobar, Pablo's nephew, discovered $18 million concealed in a wall of a former family residence. Such discoveries are not uncommon in properties once controlled by Escobar and his cartel. As their operation grew, so did the risks. Extradition became a significant concern, particularly after the Colombian government signed an extradition treaty with the US in September 1979, which threatened the cartel's operational freedom and personal security. Or large quantities of cocaine trafficking into the United States could result in criminal prosecution. This treaty, effective in March 1982, posed a significant threat to Escobar. The extradition treaty created a serious dilemma for Escobar. In Colombia, widespread corruption meant he could likely escape conviction or receive a lenient sentence. However, extradition to the United States would almost certainly lead to life imprisonment in a maximum security facility. In response to this threat during the early to mid-1980s, Escobar and his associates launched a terrorist campaign. They targeted individuals in Colombian politics, law enforcement, and the judiciary, hoping to pressure them into abandoning the extradition treaty. Despite these efforts, the fear of extradition remained constant throughout the 1980s for drug traffickers like Escobar. To counter this risk, Escobar worked to build popular support across Colombia. He crafted a Robin Hood-like persona, initially presenting himself as someone who wasn't harming ordinary Colombians. Many viewed the cartel's activities as primarily affecting the United States, which many Colombians saw as an imperial aggressor. Escobar strategically distributed massive amounts of money. He gave away cash in Medellin's poorer neighborhoods and invested in significant building projects. These included soccer stadiums, parks, civic amenities, and even opening his zoo at Hacienda Naples to the public without charge. He particularly focused on improving Medellin's road network, addressing the city's chronic traffic problems. At Christmas, Escobar would dress as Santa Claus, distributing expensive gifts in impoverished areas. Through these calculated acts of generosity, he won the adulation of many citizens in Medellin and throughout Colombia. Despite these image-softening efforts, by the early 1980s, Escobar was already well known as a notorious figure. Pablo Escobar, head of the Medellín Cartel, was a marked man. In a bold move, he decided to enter Colombian politics in 1982, running as a candidate for the Liberal Party. His campaign strategy centered on challenging the extradition treaty between Colombia and the United States. Escobar argued that President Julio César Iturbé was surrendering Colombian sovereignty by allowing Washington to extradite and prosecute Colombian citizens on US soil. However, his political ambitions came with a dark side. During a debate in Medellin, a vocal critic accused Escobar of pursuing personal interests. Shortly after, this man was detained by Medellin police, many of whom were in the cartel's pocket. Days later, his bullet-riddled body was found on Medellin's streets. Through a combination of intimidation and populist rhetoric, Escobar successfully won a seat in the Colombian Chamber of Representatives in March 1982. This political move was complex and controversial. On one hand, it provided a smokescreen for his illegal activities and allowed him to challenge the extradition treaty from within Parliament. On the other, it drew unwanted attention and provoked the conservative political establishment to target him. Before his political entry, Escobar was one of many drug traffickers in Colombia, albeit the most successful. Now, he was directly challenging the country's political system. The newly elected conservative president Belisario Betancourt was determined to remove Escobar from politics. In the summer of 1983, Betancourt launched a campaign against Pablo. He appointed Rodrigo Larrabanilla as Minister of Justice, tasking him with aggressively prosecuting drug traffickers with Escobar as the primary target. Simultaneously, a media offensive began, with El Espectador newspaper publishing a detailed article about Escobar's 1976 arrest, revealing extensive background information Pablo found himself generating far too much media attention by late 1983. Superior Judge in Medellín, Gustavo Zuloaga, decided to reopen the investigation related to his 1976 arrest. In quick succession, significant actions were taken against him. The United States Embassy in Bogotá cancelled his American visa, and the Colombian Congress voted to revoke his special parliamentary immunity. These developments forced Pablo to step back from politics, realizing that his strategy of seeking protection through political involvement had backfired dramatically. On January 20th, 1984, he dramatically resigned from the Colombian Chamber of Representatives. His resignation letter was characteristically defiant, proclaiming a continued fight against oligarchies, injustices, and what he termed backroom deal-making that disregarded people's needs. His problems had begun earlier with media scrutiny surrounding his illegal drug trafficking in Colombia. He initially responded to unwanted attention by considering extreme measures, including plotting to murder the editor of El Espectador and attempting to purchase and suppress newspaper copies to limit readership. Media stories quickly expanded beyond the initial coverage, delving into his personal life. Notably, details emerged about his affair with Virginia Vallejo, a well-known Colombian television presenter. Vallejo had been the first journalist to conduct a one-on-one interview with Escobar, and their relationship developed from that point. The affair created significant personal turmoil. His wife Maria temporarily expelled him from their family home and threatened divorce. Although he eventually pleaded to be allowed back, the affair with Vallejo continued intermittently until 1987. These events marked a turning point. Pablo was now determined to confront the Colombian government through more aggressive means, setting the stage for future conflicts. Not in a brazen escalation of his conflict with the Colombian government, Pablo Escobar orchestrated a brutal assault that would change the course of the nation's history. The first major blow came with the assassination of Justice Minister Rodrigo Lara Bonilla. While sitting in traffic in Bogotá, Bonilla was suddenly confronted by a Yamaha motorcycle. Two men approached, one driving, the other, Ivan Dario Guisado, armed with an Uzi submachine gun. He opened fire, killing Bonilla instantly. Moments after the murder, Guisado and his driver, Byron Velasquez, were killed by Bonilla's bodyguards. This act was widely seen as Escobar's direct declaration of war against the Colombian government. In response, authorities moved to fully implement the extradition treaty with the United States. Escobar temporarily fled Colombia, first settling in Panama and then briefly staying in Nicaragua, a country embroiled in a civil war during the mid-1980s. Upon returning to Colombia in late 1984, he was more determined than ever to escalate his conflict. He found an ally in the 19 of April movement, or M19, the second largest paramilitary organization in Colombia. With Escobar's financial and logistical support, M19 prepared to challenge the government over the extradition treaty, which they viewed as a violation of national sovereignty. On November 6, 1985, around 3 dozen M19 guerrilla fighters stormed the Palace of Justice in Bogotá, taking over 300 people hostage, including most of the Supreme Court judges. They demanded the renunciation of the extradition treaty and called for President Betancourt to step down and face charges. The Colombian army surrounded the building, ready to intervene. Escobar had successfully instigated a full-blown military conflict in the heart of the capital. Despite initial hopes for negotiation on the morning of November 7th, the situation remained volatile and unresolved. Initially agreed to release a prominent hostage, State Councilor Reynaldo Arcenigas, early one morning, just after lunchtime, at 2 p.m., General Jesus Armando Arias Cabrales, commander of the army divisions outside, ordered the storming of the building. The aftermath was devastating. Nearly 100 people were killed inside the palace, including almost all of the M19 fighters and half of the Colombian Supreme Court's justices. Unexpectedly, this incident provided a significant benefit for Pablo Escobar. Large amounts of documentation about Colombia's leading traffickers were destroyed during the attack, initially believed to be deliberately burned by M19 fighters to help Escobar escape charges. Evidence now suggests the documents were accidentally consumed by a fire sparked by the army's explosive entry. This bloody event had far-reaching political consequences. President Betancourt's government faced intense criticism for mishandling the siege, which resulted in the deaths of numerous senior judges. By August 1986, Virgilio Barco won the presidential election, replacing Betancourt. The Barco government adopted an even more aggressive stance against Escobar and the cartels. In January 1987, this became evident when police intercepted Escobar's convoy, while Pablo was traveling separately and avoided arrest. His wife Maria and children Juan and Manuela were detained for several hours before being released through his lawyer's intervention. This incident signaled the government's determination to challenge Escobar and marked an escalation in the conflict between the drug lord and Colombian authorities. The mid to late 1980s saw Escobar facing mounting pressure, not just from the government, but from multiple fronts. In the late 1970s, a separate cartel emerged in Cali, southwestern Colombia, run by the Orihuela brothers, Gilberto and Miguel, along with Jose Londono and Helmer Pacho Herrera, while the Medellín Cartel was developing under Pablo Escobar's leadership. Initially, these two cartels worked together, creating agreements to divide cocaine markets in the United States and collaborating to launder money and navigate legal challenges in Colombia. Their relationship, however, began to deteriorate in the mid-1980s. Rodriguez Gacha, a senior Medellín Cartel member, triggered escalating tensions by attempting to infiltrate the New York City market, an area traditionally controlled by the Cali cartel. By late 1987, an open war had erupted between the two organizations, characterized by frequent murders and bombings. In 1988, the conflict intensified when the Cali cartel successfully detonated a car bomb outside Escobar's house. Despite this ongoing conflict and government efforts to arrest or extradite him, the Medellín cartel reached its peak of wealth and power during the mid to late 1980s. Driven by increasing cocaine demand in the United States, the cartel was generating approximately $70 million daily, translating to about 25 billion in today's money. The cartel's trafficking network was importing over a dozen tons of cocaine into the US daily. According to Roberto Escobar, who managed the cartel's finances, they were spending $1,000 weekly on rubber bands just to organize their cash. The operation was so massive that up to 10% of their money was potentially lost or destroyed before being used. At this time, the Medellín cartel controlled roughly 80% of the global cocaine trade. Pablo Escobar was considered one of the world's wealthiest individuals, though exact wealth estimates varied significantly. He consistently used his immense resources to enhance his reputation within Colombia, further solidifying his complex and powerful image. Sports could serve as a powerful propaganda tool. In the early 1980s, he began providing extensive financial support to Atlético Nacional Medellín's football team. Within a few short years, the club transformed from an average performer to title contenders. High-paying contracts attracted foreign players, and some of Colombia's best footballers joined the team during this period. By 1988, Nacional finished second in the championship, which qualified them for the 1989 Copa Libertadores, a pan-South American football tournament. In a dramatic finale, Nacional defeated Paraguay's club Olimpia in a penalty shootout, becoming the first Colombian team to win the Copa. For Escobar, this investment yielded multiple benefits. He gained massive support in Medellín and across Colombia, while simultaneously using the club to launder significant amounts of money through betting rings. Eventually, football authorities began cracking down on the cartel's influence. Colombian teams were temporarily banned from the Copa Libertadores in the early 1990s. Despite the sporting success, Escobar's trafficking operations were devastating Medellín. By the late 1980s and early 90s, Medellín had become statistically the most dangerous city on earth. In 1991 alone, the city saw 7,237 murders, approximately 18 homicides per day. This translated to 266 murders per 100,000 people, with the population having grown to over 1.5 million. Colombia itself was equally turbulent. Ongoing conflicts between the government, FARC, guerrillas, and various cartels created widespread violence. In 1991, over 25,000 violent deaths were recorded, increasing to more than 27,000. In 1992, an average of 70 deaths daily, or roughly one person every 20 minutes. By most standard measurements, Colombia was effectively a failed state during this period, a situation directly linked to the pervasive violence and criminal activities of groups like Escobar's cartel, Pablo Escobar wasn't just involved in drug trafficking. His political violence in Colombia took an extreme turn, with multiple horrific incidents demonstrating his willingness to commit mass murder. In August 1989, Luis Carlos Galán, a prominent presidential candidate and long-standing enemy of Escobar, was gunned down in Socha near Bogotá. This assassination was clearly orchestrated by Escobar, who saw Galán as a significant threat. César Gaviria Trujillo subsequently stepped into the political void, emerging as a candidate who would take a tough stance against the cartels. Escobar's most notorious acts of violence occurred in late 1989. On November 27, he orchestrated the bombing of Avianca Flight 23, which exploded shortly after takeoff from Bogotá, killing all 107 passengers and 3 people on the ground. His target was Trujillo, who he believed would be on the flight and who he wanted to eliminate before the 1990 presidential election. Just 2 weeks later, escalated his terror. A truck bomb filled with half a ton of dynamite exploded outside the Administrative Department of Security building in Bogotá. The blast killed 57 people and injured over 2,000, with General Miguel Alfredo Marquez as the intended target. Despite attempting to portray himself as a Colombian Robin Hood, these actions revealed Escobar's true nature. When Trujillo won the presidency in 1990, it became clear that prosecution was inevitable. However, a new constitutional development in 1991 complicated matters by eliminating the extradition treaty with the United States, a move many analysts believe was influenced by various powerful interests. These events demonstrated that Escobar's violence extended far beyond drug trafficking, encompassing widespread political terror designed to protect his interests and eliminate opponents. 9. Pablo Escobar had deeply embedded connections with Colombian cartels. To prevent his potential extradition to the United States, he strategically bribed numerous members of the National Assembly, ensuring the extradition treaty would not be included in the new constitution. By the early 90s, Escobar found himself in an increasingly precarious situation. He was simultaneously engaged in conflicts with both the Cali cartel and the Colombian government, recognizing the mounting challenges. He decided to pursue a different approach. Escobar began negotiating with administration officials about serving a limited jail sentence, hoping to end his conflict with the state and ultimately secure his relative freedom. This potential arrangement offered potential benefits for both parties. For Escobar, it represented a chance to establish a clean slate within Colombia. The Colombian government saw an opportunity to potentially halt the constant attacks on politicians and judges that had plagued the country for nearly a decade. While the deal might not have been entirely honorable, it presented a temporary solution to one of the country's many problems, including an ongoing civil war in rural regions. In 1991, Pablo Escobar voluntarily surrendered to law enforcement, with one significant condition. He wanted to build his own jail. The resulting facility, La Catedral, was far from a typical prison. Unlike traditional correctional institutions designed to separate inmates from their previous lives, Escobar negotiated terms that allowed him extraordinary privileges. Constructed on a hilltop overlooking Medellín, the prison was strategically located to enable easy visits from associates and family. The prison was more akin to a luxury compound. It featured amenities that would be unimaginable in a standard jail. A football pitch, a jacuzzi, a bar complete with a waterfall, and even a private telephone line. Escobar also installed a telescope, allowing him to observe the city below. Essentially, this was a purpose-built mansion where he was under a form of voluntary house arrest. Not surprisingly, locals began referring to the facility as Hotel Escobar, reflecting the extraordinary nature of his imprisonment. Constructed on a foggy hilltop, it was more of a fortress designed to protect Escobar than to confine him. The Colombian government had struck a deal. Escobar would serve a 5-year sentence, and in return, they would not pursue extradition to the United States. This arrangement allowed Escobar to continue managing his drug trafficking operations from his hilltop location, while the government claimed to have imposed punishment. However, the illusion quickly unraveled. By early 1992, Colombian media reported that Escobar was still running the Medellín Cartel from La Catedral, enjoying remarkably comfortable conditions. Facing mounting pressure, the Colombian government attempted to transfer Escobar to a standard jail in July 1992. But Escobar was forewarned. With minimal restrictions on his movements, he easily escaped through a pre-planned route. A false wall concealing an escape tunnel was removed, revealing a passage he had strategically built during the prison's construction. This escape marked the beginning of the final dramatic chapter of Escobar's life. Now firmly opposed by President Trujillo's government, he faced unprecedented pressure. The United States was given free rein to operate on Colombian soil in pursuit of Escobar. SEAL Team 6, a division of the U.S. Joint Special Operations Command, was deployed in Colombia with the specific goal of capturing or killing Escobar. They worked alongside the Search Block, a Special Operations Unit of the Colombian National Police. Originally formed in 1986, the Search Block had been significantly bolstered in the early 1990s to intensify the hunt for the notorious drug lord. If captured, Escobar would almost certainly face a life sentence in a maximum security US prison, a fate he was desperately trying to avoid. The manhunt for Pablo Escobar intensified dramatically after his escape from La Catedral prison in July 1992. A broad coalition of enemies, including the Cali Cartel and a vigilante group called Los Pepes, joined forces against him. Los Peps represented people who had lost loved ones to Escobar's violent campaign of bombing since the 1980s. Immediately after his escape, Escobar gave a provocative radio interview from his safe house. In this broadcast, he taunted the government and his opponents by detailing his escape. Despite his bravado, there was an element of caution in his message. He suggested he was willing to return to custody if certain conditions were met, specifically serving the remainder of his sentence at La Catedral. The government was done negotiating, no new terms were offered, and the manhunt escalated. US and Colombian special forces, including the Search Block and American Delta Force, began conducting intensive house-to-house searches in Medellín and Bogotá. They were actively hunting down Escobar's closest associate. In December 1992, they nearly captured Escobar during a raid on a safe house he had just abandoned hours earlier. Meanwhile, Escobar's support network was rapidly disintegrating. Many supporters and facilitators began to abandon him, recognizing that his capture seemed inevitable and the cost of loyalty was becoming prohibitively high. The shifting dynamics were symbolized by the killing of Escobar's brother-in-law by Los Peps. After nearly a year and a half on the run, Escobar was finally located through a sophisticated surveillance operation tracking his cell phone transmissions in early 1993. On December 2, 1993, Search Block and US operatives pinpointed Escobar in a middle-class neighborhood called Los Olivos in Medellín. A unit burst through the door, causing Escobar and his bodyguard, Alvaro Dacius Agudelo, known as El Limon, to flee onto the building's roof, known as El Limon houses. Pablo Escobar tried to escape across the rooftops of neighboring houses. The details of what exactly transpired are not entirely clear. Gunfire erupted, and soon Pablo lay dead on the rooftop. Bullets had struck his leg, torso, and ear. Fatal shot to the head raised questions about the circumstances of his death. Some suspected Escobar might have taken his own life, having previously decided he would never be captured and extradited to the United States. Roberto, Pablo's brother and close confidant, later confirmed that Pablo had always maintained he would shoot himself through the ear if cornered. Regardless of the precise truth, the outcome remained the same. On December 2, 1993, just a day after his 44th birthday, and nearly 2 decades after founding the Medellín Cartel, El Patron, or the boss, was killed in Medellín. Despite his violent legacy, Escobar's Robin Hood persona remained powerful. Over 25,000 people attended his funeral, demonstrating his enduring local support. After Escobar's death, the Cali Cartel temporarily became Colombia's primary cocaine manufacturer and trafficker. However, they faced significant competition from the emerging Norte del Valle cartel, which had originated in the Valle del Cauca region during the final years of Pablo's life. Both organizations increasingly sought to transport cocaine through Mexico, which had become the primary entry point into the United States, as Caribbean routes to Florida and the East Coast became more challenging to navigate in the 90s. The Cali Cartel was eventually dismantled in the mid-90s, giving rise to new successor syndicates. The North Coast Cartel, based in Barranquilla, focused on supplying European networks while reviving some of Escobar's older distribution routes to the east coast of the United States. Each successive cartel emerged with increasingly violent methods, replacing those that came before. These organizations continually evolved, each seeking to establish dominance in the drug trade. Colombia has gradually begun recovering from the drug cartels and political conflicts that devastated the country in the latter half of the 20th century. In 2016, a historic ceasefire agreement marked a significant step towards national reconciliation, helping to close a turbulent chapter in the nation's history. Has transformed dramatically since the collapse of the Medellín Cartel in the mid-1990s. The city has emerged as a hub of industry and business, with a remarkable environmental and innovative public transport system that stands in stark contrast to its violent past. Escobar's story begins in the urban squalor of Medellín, a city that grew from a small town to over 1 million people between the 1920s and 1970s. He rose to prominence during a time of mass political violence, and when Colombia became the global capital of cocaine production. While his criminal activities were notorious, he also cultivated a Robin Hood-like image by providing for the poor and disenfranchised. His community efforts included creating jobs, developing infrastructure, funding the local football team Atlético Nacional to a Copa Libertadores victory in 1989, and even allowing free access to his due, Hacienda Napoles. These actions occurred during a period when many people felt abandoned by the government in Bogotá. Traces of Escobar's legacy remain visible today. La Cathedral, his former prison, was taken over by Benedictine monks in 2007 and transformed into a religious site. The hippos from his private zoo still wander the grounds of Hacienda Napoles. Some argue that if Escobar hadn't emerged as the head of the Medellín Cartel, another drug trafficker would have likely risen to prominence. The city's reconciliation with its violent past continues through peace negotiations with the FARC rebels, offering hope for an end to half a century of paramilitary violence. Medellín's remarkable transformation from a center of drug-related crime to an internationally acclaimed city represents a powerful story of urban renewal and resilience, and offered unprecedented levels of violence during Pablo Escobar's reign of terror. While the country already faced numerous challenges, Escobar's relentless war against the government and rival cartels dramatically escalated the bloodshed. By the mid-1980s, Colombia was experiencing over 25,000 violent deaths annually. With nearly one-third concentrated in Medellín alone, Escobar's tactics were brutally indiscriminate. Although he might have been willing to distribute some of his wealth, he showed no hesitation in murdering hundreds of innocent bystanders to eliminate his enemies. The Avianca Flight 23 and Department of Security bombings in late 1989 starkly demonstrated his willingness to cause massive collateral damage. His carefully crafted public image as a decent man who sells flowers was a complete fabrication. Despite attempting to portray himself as a Robin Hood-like figure, Escobar was fundamentally a mass murderer who devastated Colombian society. His actions went far beyond simple criminal enterprise, creating a climate of terror, paralyzed entire communities. Only after Escobar's malevolent influence was removed in the mid-90s did Medellín and Colombia begin to make meaningful progress toward rebuilding and reform. His elimination marked a turning point for a nation that had been held hostage by his ruthless ambitions and violent methods.